superpowers to bring you entertainment.
Gives it almost that Blues Live show feel, dude.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. And welcome to Business Party Podcast. This episode, it's just me without my co-host Davey. He's out on vacation doing his damn thing, so I hope he's having one hell of a time. And I know I am drinking a beer here with my buddy that I have met on TikTok. TikTok is a crazy ass land. Also, where I met my co-host, it's a Wild West show sometimes. Dude, there's so many crazy sides of TikTok too. But on all of that, introduce yourself and plug yourself. Everything that you can right now, and I'll probably have you plug everything later too. But go ahead and introduce yourself, homie.
TikTok, 1776 by 2.
1.4.5.
Yeah, at the point, yeah, you'll find them. Couple of them, of course, banned, casualties of the war, but we keep plugging on strong.
Right.
Oh
yeah, and I will end up putting those in the this way that you do it, yeah, because it's 1.7 then 7 70, yeah.
Yeah, it's clever and all that shit, and I didn't realize the difficulties that would come with doing it that way.
Right. Oh, dude, and you end up doing all sorts of crazy shit like that on TikTok too. Like, and you say casualties of war. Like we were just talking a little bit ago, that new account that, well, not new. That's like my original account, but that thing's been permanently banned 3 times, and I have somehow gotten it back every fucking time.
Stripped down like my first 2 accounts when they snatched them. One of them is completely gone. You can't even search it anymore. You can still search 2 of them, and they're the ones I had appeals on. And they're still banned, but they show up, unlike the other one. So it's just weird. Then you got people that can't stay on for more than an hour. I found Mr. Freedom Stick again. And literally, when I went to go back and like look at it again after following, and it was already gone. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Right. Oh yeah. Old boy, Be Free Inside. Dude, every time he comes back on, he's gone immediately.
And the crazy thing is, what I really, really liked about him is, for the most part, he stayed, like, all the politics shit, like, you know me, I'm mostly politics, but, like, not politics, but he stayed through all that shit and just did his thing. He stayed in his lane, and for the most part, he followed the guidelines. He endeavored to follow the guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, so, absolutely, yeah. Well, and he mainly did just more like survival stuff, and I loved his mushroom hunting stuff. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, in Michigan, mushroom hunting is a big thing. So, like, when I saw the stuff that he was putting out about that, I was like, oh, okay, now I can learn a little something while I'm here doing this stuff, because it's not something I'm completely familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not originally from Michigan. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but when I bought the house out here, it's like, okay, well, now I got to learn. Like, I know all the foraging shit for Pennsylvania, man. Now I got to kind of learn my new geographic region stuff. It's a whole new, like, learning curve again, so.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I started getting into, like, the mushroom collecting not too long ago. Me and my buddy Larry, he's the guy who helped me write the intro song, but me and him got into some of the foraging stuff. He's actually growing peppers and stuff, too. Like actual hot peppers, habaneros and shit like that, and so we're growing some good stuff. And
they're not really difficult. This year's the first year that we were as the family we're planning together. We did spinach, and the spinach crop's been really good. I basically, like, people are overwhelmed with where to start with this shit, but seriously, you can go to like Dollar General and at your dollar store, anywhere that sells free. They sell you want heirloom seeds, essentially, stuff that's going to propagate, and the seeds off of which you can continue to propagate with. I put that shit in a freaking coffee can, and it sat it out on the outside deck on the patio table, and the plant started growing. Man, plants do their thing if you give them the conditions. Give them some decent soil, sunlight, water them. Don't overwater them. Let them do their thing. They know what to do.
Right.
You won't starve. Potatoes are easy, easy, easy.
That's one thing, dude. That's one thing that I would love to grow is some potatoes. I already love them, but it would be great to grow them because it's just something that it continuously kind of does it.
You got a dog?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you got a dog, you buy dog food bags. I'm growing potatoes in empty dog food bags. Like,
I gotcha.
you see what I'm saying? Like, you can
Yeah.
use anything. And the thing about potatoes is they're hardy. Number one, number two, they can literally be almost completely neglected and still grow.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's why I'm like, they'll just keep going.
If you're something overwhelmed or forget to water things, potatoes will still do their thing. And if you forget a couple of days and not water them, you're not gonna hurt them.
Right.
So, and it's really easy to do this stuff. You can buy or repurpose. Like I said, I'm growing a tomato plant in a freaking coffee can.
Right.
I grew my first plants, my herbal plants, in the 25-gallon or whatever, the Rubbermaid totes, the storage totes.
Mm-hmm.
A couple laying around, filled them with good dirt, cultivated the seed, grew that shit, and let it do its thing.
Right. See, and I'm starting to get a little bit more, a decent bit more into more of the botany type stuff, actually growing things, and especially bushcraft stuff has been one of my main things because I've been getting a lot more into the survival deal. And I bought a nice winter camping tent to where if I want to go out during the winter, I have a wood stove that I will take with me so I can actually survive out there and shit. So if it did come down to stuff like that, I could do a lot more of that. I've been buying a lot of bushcraft tools and decent little hand saws and shit to actually learn a lot more. And it's been cool actually, especially on TikTok doing the prepper talk area on that side because dude, there's so many people have so much good information. That's another reason why I'm sad the Be Free Inside is gone.
Once you start going down that prepper thing and start thinking like, you know what, it's not a bad idea to have it on hand. You go deep. Like,
yeah.
Like when we bought this property, things that I was looking for, I wanted the capability to completely take it off the grid. I've got a well. I don't have to worry. There is no water lines up here. It's a well. Okay. The neighbor's got a well that when his well was dug, it hit an aquifer. He doesn't even need a pump. It's literally, it pours out because it's there. It hit the aquifer. There's already pressure pushing it up to the surface now. So it has a relief spot, which it's some of the cleanest water you're ever going to find.
Right.
We run on natural gas, but what I want to do, there's certain things I want to do that, let's say something goes down, natural gas is no longer a viable option. I've already got the other elements in place and a place to put it. Getting something that would be like, say, a used oil or a multi-type burner for heating purposes, whether that's wood, coal, old oil, whatever the case may be, vegetable oil, all these types of things that play through my head. And then there's also the electricity. I don't know if you've started seeing. I've been following them for a long time, but they're hydrogen on demand systems that are supposed to significantly increase fuel capacity. But I'm trying to see if maybe I could put one together because I do have a little bit of electrical background, but I'd like to experiment and see if I can put one together that the hydrogen system would power a small generator engine to be able to hook electricity and kind of be able to draw it for certain things. Like there's different things that I want to play with. It's just getting the time and things to do.
Right. Be Free. Yeah. There was, I think like a month ago or so, he has a little system like that he hooked up to something. He was showing it. Yeah.
There's crazy things you could do with things like an alternator that a small or low voltage current can essentially make it be used like a transformer and put out 220, 240, whatever it is you need there. So it's all sorts of different things. I'm looking at other potential uses for generating electricity, whether that be taking, say, the motor out of an old washer or dryer and hooking it up with some fan blades or something like that, or hooking them up in succession so that as they turn in the breeze, it's causing an electrical current, something I can draw from. Having a multitude of sources where you can actually draw as needed.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah, and I have somewhat thought about solar panel wise too, but which I would like to get some travel ones just in case, like in a little battery fucking
The
generator power pack type deal.
radio crank that was
Yeah,
like,
radio.
yeah, yeah. I mean, legitimately having even a car charger, like a battery charger,
Mm-hmm.
being able to charge a battery can get you communications hooked up if you have a CB, just enough to get.
Right. I was gonna say yeah, CB, and also I want to get like a just a handheld ham radio, not even a crazy one that you have to hook up too much shit, just like a handheld one that goes like a mile or two.
Yeah, I have like some small local ones that also will you can switch them over to tune into like the severe weather radio broadcast thing. It'll tell you the weather where you're at. I got that for local family use. I want to plan on eventually getting one of because everybody talks about it, even as you said, be free inside the Bowfangs, just because of the versatility of them and some of the things that he explained about being able to, at minimum, listen into some of the ham signals on him. So it was something that drew my attention to that, because when shit hits the fan, you don't have to have a ham operator license to do your thing.
Nope.
Nobody's gonna care.
Nope. Yeah, law's out the window by then. It really doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, law's out the fucking window if the minute that we all realize that we, as the people, hold the actual power, because they are powerless to stop us if we just say no. Like, legitimately. If the people that we have agreed to allow to be in charge of upholding our Constitution are incapable or unwilling to do so, if we the people uphold this shit by simply relearning and getting very well acquainted with our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and how shit is supposed to operate, and then conduct ourselves in our day-to-day lives and remove ourselves from all of the systems that they've placed upon us, realistically, our Federal Reserve is unconstitutional. Every system is unconstitutional. And if you understand that they're planning on a one world fucking government, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, right? They're planning on taking it all from you. So it doesn't matter if they crash the economy and try and boot you out of your house. If you want what you've already got, you better be willing to defend and fight it, no matter who it is coming for it.
Right. And that's why I wish, like, even left or right, like, especially if you just don't agree with what's been happening in the past, like, however many years, especially 20 to 30, doesn't matter what side you're on. I'm just tired of it all being given away, every bit that we've been put in just being fucking thrown to some bullshit that none of us care about. So why are we still filing at all? Why are we not all just going exempt and saying fuck you and not filing? That's one of my points. Like, we need to hurt them in the pocket is how I feel is going to affect them the most.
It's the social engineering. People have been think about it. We've been programmed from day one to obey. We don't think about it. A lot of people don't even know how any of this shit functions. They sure as shit don't teach us this shit in school. True. Right?
No, they teach you branches of it to make you into a good little soldier boy.
Exactly.
That's about it.
They don't want you smart enough to question everything, just smart enough to produce for them. Okay,
right.
Your monitoring system is unconstitutional.
Oh,
which
yeah.
means your system, the whole thing, the entire thing is this Ponzi scheme and a sham. We built our own damn prison.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, what is our school system comes from? What, the Prussian system, to where it's basically just build workers, not thinkers.
Essentially, it doesn't really like. It's social engineering at its finest. They've managed to take everything, the accumulated knowledge of all of history, of psychology, biology, all of it, slap it together, and be able to effectively use it as a tool to control the masses. They keep it, and it's you know well that both the left and the right, all of these politicians are equally guilty of subverting the Constitution. It doesn't matter who it is.
By nature, absolutely.
sitting in that government knowing that they took an oath of office and not a single one of them once upholds the Constitution.
No, not at all. That's why I think it's kind of funny. In a couple of my videos, I talk shit about Trump, and then I get like hate by some people. They're like, "Well, he didn't have enough time to do what he wanted." It's like, you didn't have enough time. Look at this motherfucker in office right now. Not even 2 years deep, and he's already crashed our entire fucking system. Basically, come on,
I
man.
see it straight out, controlled opposition, and there's a couple of them that are like that. That do. They sit on the fence and they're like, you know what? Maybe it really is, and I'm like, that's how it's supposed to work. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Why would they attack him or impeach him and all this? Because it lends credibility. Do you not understand how drama works? Do you not
Yep.
watch TV shows? You get hung on the edge of your seat as every little thing happens. It's drama. It's a show.
Well, and it's a lot more pronounced nowadays, especially because of social media and regular media. All of our fucking 5 company owned fucking mainstream media that just pumps out the same horse shit.
It's a shell game with companies, but it's traced back to companies that pretty much own and bankroll and back everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but this is the thing. The left and the right don't realize this, okay? Because they're constantly being cast at one another by the people in control. The gripes that the left has with society and their communities, all the things that they're like, this is bullshit, we shouldn't have to deal with this, this is what's happening. There is a lot of freaking truth to what they're saying, just like the people on the right. Once you get all the political talking points, strip it down and actually look at the information, the circumstances that are caused in the communities on the left that they most have issues with are created by government policies that have failed, and they have just doubled down on those same policies. And those situations that are also created out in freaking sticks or in the more right-leaning communities, those gripes that they have with everything are substantial and factual too once you remove the same shit and you really look at it. Once people start to realize that the problems that everyone is having are from the same fucking source, we can come together, set the differences and bullshit aside, just like our founding fathers did in the very beginning. Okay, they didn't.
Right.
They waited until once shit was secure, and then they sat down and said, "All right, let's look at all this shit and let's put together what we think is the best path forward."
Right. No, yeah, and I definitely agree. The only like the main problems that I see with both the left and the right is the like especially the left, because I know classic liberals are more almost like a conservative type of base, or more along the lines of like what the Constitution is, but they will become somewhat progressive, and they like a little bit more of a government type of system, but not control. That's what I think is the problem with some of the Democrat or the left side right now is the what came up during the 1970s 80s era that Yuri Bezmenov warned about was all of this other shit that's going to come up and ruin all those generations, because he said all it takes is fucking like 20 years, you can ruin a whole generation and take over a whole country and shit. And that's basically what has happened for a while.
Communist Rules for Revolution, I believe. It traces back to Saul Alinsky, if I remember.
Rules for Radicals.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah,
and it basically breaks down exactly how you go about destabilizing a society, and they've managed to make it work. They have. In fact, during the Cold War, there was a board convened to do a study to determine whether or not communists and socialists had infiltrated the government, and to what extent. And that study they had in fact infiltrated the government from the highest levels to the lowest levels. I don't know if you ever got the chance to look at it, but it was grandjury.net, okay? And it was a group of international lawyers, doctors, and whatnot that all came together and put together a grand jury style case to present in what they call
write that down. What is it? Grandjury.net?
Yeah. I don't know if it's if you're going to be able to find it, I watched it. There were like 5 days of testimony, but they actually broke down the history of how all of it happened, and I was actually thrown because I was like, okay, let's see what this bullshit's about, because maybe it's just another part of the stage and stuff like that. But they actually went into detailed history with the Rockefellers, the different Ford and all of them. They broke down how they had come together to basically flip and subjugate everybody under the economic system and shit like that through the Federal Reserve and through all that. And then brought it to modern times. Like, they gave you the timeline all the way up to modern times and put the plan together and said, well, here's the information, do with it as you will.
Right.
And it was very interesting because they essentially tried to say, look, we've put the information together for you to determine yourself.
There was a long time, like, it's on this subject, but there was it's always something that sticks out in my mind, which I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. But I know a long time ago that there was always been a rumor, never totally been, I guess confirmed that. Well, it's basically more or less like the bankers and whatever else that created the two-party system, because then it creates divide and shit like that. Because in order for that, it creates money. Because there always has to be some sort of a war, some sort of a divide.
So essentially, constitutionally speaking, Congress was given the responsibility for coining and printing our money, and it was supposed to be backed by some sort of precious metal like gold or silver. It's mentioned in the Constitution specifically. So the Federal Reserve, what they did, essentially in creating the Federal Reserve Act, they not only abdicated the responsibility of coining and printing our money and measuring its weight and worth, they abdicated it to an outside source having absolutely no connection or affiliation to.
There's neither federal nor reserve.
That means it's also out of the realm of representation from we the people. Okay,
right.
Not only that, they created a bank, as you said. It's a business, and now they are loaning not only us but our federal government the money to use at an interest. Okay, and people are like, well, my taxes are going to pay this, and this. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
Our government is borrowing that money from this bank with us as securities. That's what your birth certificate is. It's us as securities. We are promising to pay. They're borrowing the money on our behalf and telling them that we promise to pay the money back that they're spending. Okay?
Right.
So our taxes are going back and paying the interest. It's not even covering the interest at this point, which is why we have the deficit that we have. Okay? But there's something that we're going to promise, and when that defaults, do you know what that means?
Oh, that we fucking lose our ass.
Everything. Essentially servitude, which is what we're already in, because
we lose our ass.
Not only are we operating and working for everyone else's profit, but then we're also consume.
And our biggest fucking debt owner is China. They always have been, and they always probably fucking will be. That's going to be one of the biggest problems.
Because at some point, the debt is you're not having a population large enough to cover the debt, so you need collateral. Do you know they sold the Liberty Bell to China? That's why China is getting a lot of land and other stuff. It's to cover the debts that China. Yeah. They sold the Liberty Bell. You can look it up. There was a news article about it. I believe it was in Newsweek or some shit like that at some point.
Oh, my God. I did not know that. Wow.
It is where it's at, but essentially ownership of the Liberty Bell was given to China.
That's fucked up, bro.
But this is the thing. This can continue to keep going like this. The one thing that is absolutely certain and clear is that they are intending to take all of these things, these conveniences of our modern lives that they've given to us in exchange for those liberties and freedoms and continuing to just continue to obey and allow ourselves to be roughshod trod over. Or we can reassert our power by saying, you know what, if you're not going to handle this shit, we will handle it within our communities, and removing ourselves from that shit altogether by ignoring All of it, every bit of the systems that they have put in place to enslave us, just letting it collapse because they're driving it into the ground anyway. So if you want to keep sinking on the, or you want to keep sitting there like the freaking band on Titanic, like I said in my video earlier, and keep sinking with the ship,
Right.
or you can put this vest on, right? Call it a life vest, call it a bulletproof vest. Put this motherfucking vest on, and let's work together to make sure that can't nobody step on us. And you can live your life how you want to live it, and I'll live my life how I want to live it behind my walls. But when shit really goes down, I know I'm going to have your back, and you're going to have my back. I don't care what your political ideation is, because ultimately what we're all arguing and fighting for is freedom.
Right.
That's what human spirit yearns for. It's why we have all this mental health bullshit, because we are not living in accordance with the very nature of ourselves.
No, not at all. And I get in the very nature of our Constitution, period, and the way that this fucking country should be and should have been for a very long fucking time. And I mean, yeah, people get hot about that whole Roe versus Wade thing, but look, that's a constitutional ruling because that's how it should be. I don't care if you like it or not, it should be up to the states. That's how it should be. I don't think it should be around at all.
To continue to drive that wedge. That's why this happened when it did. It's why everything that they want that tension. They need to make sure that we stay divided, and they need to drive that wedge even harder because we're reaching that crucible. We're reaching that crucible. If at any point in time we step across that aisle and actually unite together, which is starting to happen. You're seeing it on TikTok. The left's reaching over, the right's reaching over, and we're actually starting to converse, which is causing unity. And once that happens, downfall to all of it. So they have to drive that shit harder, and that's what these Supreme Court rulings are. That's what this is. That's what that is. That's what these shootings are.
Well, that's part of like what one thing that like I've been thinking about a lot is I'm waiting for them to try to get rid of the filibuster, which they keep trying to call for. I'm waiting for them to try to get rid of that, and I'm waiting for them to just keep trying to dismantle the Constitution because we all know
they essentially
the left, like the left or the globalists want us to not have our Constitution. They want to dismantle a lot of it so they can control our country.
They essentially already did through the 14th Amendment. Prior to the 14th Amendment, the Constitution stated that we, the people, essentially have the power. That's how it's written out in its originality. We are the ultimate power in this, and they represent us. They work for us. The wording of the 14th Amendment basically says that all of us are under the jurisdiction and subjects of the federal government. But this is not the shit that they try to teach you, and this is stuff that you end up having to read. Most people don't understand that the Constitution itself never would have existed. It would have never been ratified. The federal government itself wouldn't exist if they had not agreed to the Bill of Rights.
Right.
It was a contingency upon which the people themselves and their representatives agreed to have a federal government, a centralized government, because of the fear of having a centralized government turn tyrannical. So many of the Constitution itself was the restrictions and agreements upon which everybody agreed would say, hey, this is how we think this should operate to best prevent the possibility of tyranny taking hold. So most things were left to the states. Very few things, according to the Constitution, were given to the federal government to do.
Right. As it should be.
Better, and that was the idea behind it. But so many people, and like you were saying, there's been this consciousness shift, and it's from the social engineering, where people on the right are now more left than they've ever been and don't even realize it because it's through education and constant program cycling, through movies and propaganda and all this shit that gets your mind turned towards this shit. So yeah, there's been this political shift in perspectives on both the all of it pushing more and ever more towards authoritarianism rather than individual liberty and freedom.
Right. And I see that quite a bit more in like especially Republicans, like and conservatives too, but like Republicans big time, yes. Conservatives, yeah, they try to want a little bit less government, but they kind of still get in that realm. But that's why I've been following more in like the libertarian mindset with those more type of people are constitutionalists because I'm more in that aspect.
I let go of like the political titles years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what it's just
I
I
understood
have
what
to. It's like if somebody wants to know where I stand, though, kind of, it's like you can put
right.
me here.
I honestly had no idea that what I thought or felt was like, or the way that I viewed things, or the way that, because like I said, it's not even. I don't sit here and try to pass off opinion as fact. I say this is what it says. This is the history behind it, and this is what makes sense if you actually look at it. If you actually apply the historical understanding of the times and why to what's said, you get the genuine understanding of what was implied. There's no need to try and
Right.
what do they say? Interpret it. It said
Yeah, because to the left, I mean, they think it's a living document. I'm sorry, but no, it's not. It's not a living document. It says what it says. That's how it was written.
if you need to understand it as a living document by saying, look, Article 5, and I get in this argument with people all the time. They think that through Article 5, a two-thirds majority in both the House and Senate can alter the Constitution. Simply not what Article 5 says. Article 5
Right.
gives the modes and means through which new amendments can be proposed and ratified. Now, look at what the first 10 amendments are. They are all the enumeration of inherent unalienable rights that the federal government could not touch. Why does it not stand to reason that the exception for adding new amendments would be to further enumerate, delineate, and ensure individual liberties and freedoms that would not be under government rule? Period.
Right.
So and it was through these and this is what they did. They started to turn the system towards, okay, set the precedent, and that's what we can base law on once we set a precedent. And so they've always found a means to justify a precedent. Our law was never intended to be based on precedent, but it's why I say we've been operating under a de facto government that operates of law, which is a facsimile. It's not real law. It's just given the appearance to be so.
Right. No, very true. Yeah, and I always hear that that whole thing, which I know you could talk a little bit on, is the whole the two constitution thing. And no, it's not even with the other amendment. It's how people talk about what's it, the Act of 1871.
Yeah, but I've constantly asked people what they're referring to, because there were a numerous amount of acts of 1871. Now, if you're talking about governing documents for our nation, there were two, okay? And one of them was the Articles of Confederation, and then there was the actual Constitution. What they're also trying to refer to as a Constitution is essentially what you do when you open a corporation. So because they corporatized America, they had to basically make their thing, which they essentially just kind of copy and pasted what it is. But it's not an actual constitution. But what they have is the U.S. statutes now, which is essentially that facsimile of law, that color of law that they always try to cite in courts and try to. And it's crazy because the wordplay is interesting when you go to court if you really look at it. Like I said, state nationalists have the information right. That's how we got here, the coercion and stuff like that. I just disagree that we're ever at a point where we can actually go and file with this system to rectify what they were charged with keeping insured in the first place. Okay? Once you realize that it's all bullshit and a fraud, that it was based on coercion and fraud, it doesn't even have a leg to stand on in court anyways. There's no point to even arguing it or going through the system because the system has upheld it so far. So you're telling me, and like I said, when you go through the motions of removing yourself, what you're doing is legitimizing it. You're legitimizing it because you're actually acknowledging that it's happening, making a contract with them to remove yourself from it, while simultaneously allowing them to continue perpetuating that fraud and bullshit on the rest of the people that, by our very founding documents, all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights. So once you recognize that they have essentially stripped people of this shit and you remove yourself from it, okay, it no longer affects you or maybe your household, but you're allowing your fellow man, your fellow countryman to be tread on. And we all know that if you allow your neighbor to be tread on, it's only a matter of time before another group comes back and tries to tread on you. And that's why it's so important that unity and coming together in common defense of one another is so important. United we stand, divided we fall.
If there's been people who have become the state nationalists, I'm surprised that there isn't like a decent lawyer that just puts a few of those cases together and be like, look, they got this because of this, a coercion thing. So like literally the government is coercing. So
there's a reason it's called the Bar Association, and you take a test to enter it.
But constitutional law.
You need a constitutional court to be arguing constitutional law, and none of them are constitutional. Not even our Supreme Court right now. Remember,
I mean that's true, but at least they're upholding some of it. But no, it's true. Yeah,
they're upholding what continues to keep up the appearance and keep everybody in line and in check. Or act in a way that they want or is beneficial to their plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to really remember, man. Operation Paperclip, that whole plan, that genetic eugenics plan that Nazis had and were doing, it never went. It never ended. Okay, Operation Paperclip. We brought all those scientists over here and essentially put them in high places in some of our most sacred fucking agencies that are also all unconstitutional. But
especially NASA. Fucking what's it, Werner von Braun, that motherfucker.
Now think about it. It's all the informational warfare. Why do you think they're data dumping and giving out all the information they've been holding back for how long? Why do you think it's so far back that they're actually releasing now? There's a reason behind it, because they can get everybody all done up and arguing and fighting and listening and going through all this shit, and the information overload just keeps everybody in this constant state of absolute chaos.
Right.
Order chaos. They are keeping control by keeping everybody in such a chaotic emotional state rather than living your motherfucking life and defending what you have.
Oh, they definitely are doing that quite a bit these days. You can definitely put money on that. The way that everything's going, oh yeah.
Well, I don't know if you saw it. I posted it on both of my accounts, but I went to one of these local meetings, and unfortunately, I'm very much one of these people.
I saw that. Yeah, go into that.
I bought this place because I wanted to be away from everything. I wanted to be far away enough from everything that was worth anything, but close enough to still get to it. So like somewhere I could go for bigger shopping, that kind of thing. But I wanted to be far enough out of the way where people left me the fuck alone. That's all I wanted, up there, my little spot, my little house that I could just live my life, do my thing. I got a good deal on a place where, there had been a dam collapse for some. There's a lot of controversy around it, but apparently the owner of the dam tried to lower the dam. The government stopped them because of some mussel or something like that was in the water, and essentially we had gotten some ungodly amount of rain here that was like a once in a lifetime freaking amount of rain that literally caused the dams to collapse. A lot of bad shit. But essentially there's the few communities that it affects, they've gotten funding and stuff like that to go ahead and rebuild the dams and get the water back. But they want to try, they have this, and I guess they're appointed by some of the community's councilmen or whatever. I don't know, whatever the fuck it is, but they're appointed and they want to sit here and try and assess us money based on how getting the water back benefits our properties, right? Some really asinine reasoning to be able to justify giving a whole bunch of different numbers to everybody. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense because it doesn't benefit us to have that water back or not. We're already paying a luxury tax for something that we don't have. We're assessed for it already. So we're not getting refunds on this luxury tax, okay? But we don't have this luxury. But who actually benefits from these lakes coming back? And it's the local governments.
Right.
The revenue generated from tourism, taxation, sales tax, that kind of thing.
Yeah, why wouldn't the luxury tax go toward fixing whatever? Like what?
Exactly. And what do you maintain? I can step outside and show you the lake bed and see the freaking jungle that's growing out there. So if you're not what's going to happen when the water comes back? Are you guys going to do anything about this shit? Because your tourism is still going to take a dip after the fact, because anybody who tries to go out there with any kind of prop motor is going to have their shit messed up.
Right. Right.
So what you essentially said was, oh well, people can deal with it themselves out to 100 feet or whatever it is, but so we have to incur that cost too. What are you maintaining if you're assessing us for maintenance and whatever it is, administrative costs? What are you doing? No.
Yeah, what are you doing?
No, you will get, if they send me a freaking tax bill and they have that extra assessment on it, you can absolutely freaking guarantee that I'll send the check minus that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, take me to court. I'd love to see you try to justify in court a board of unelected officials, therefore not representing any of our community, telling us we have to pay a tax. Good luck with that, pal. Good freaking. You might be able to snow, because it is. I went to this thing and I noticed, I'm looking around, most of these people are considerably older. Okay, they're retirement age. They're living on a fixed income. We're talking about some of the worst inflation and all this shit. These people are barely making it fucking work at this point, and you're about to try and assess them some extra fucking money? Come on, man. You're trying to pilfer the pockets to push these freaking old people out here because there's tourism here and you can gentrify this motherfucking shit and make it a fucking resort. Okay? Let's cut the crap, because that's what it looks like. You're trying to pilfer the pocket, and that's what I said in the video. You're trying to pilfer the pockets of this freaking community. But I just wanted to be left alone, man. Leave me alone. Now you're going to make me get involved, because I'm not going to run for no office, but I guarantee you I will try. I will unite the communities against your asses if you want to play with me.
You're like, I'll keep being loud out here. You better believe that.
I already got the notification from my local community how the second Monday of every month at 7 a.m. they do the town hall. I'm already thinking about going and making my presence known.
Do it.
I'm going to freaking painting your ass that it's unbelievable, because it's going to give me content. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to let people know, because I'm going to show you how you go in here and you talk to them. You don't let them talk you down.
Yeah. Well, but that's a good thing, though, too, is by you doing that and putting it out there, it's going to show that people need to start standing up in that fashion, because everybody has fucking lost the reality of that these people work for us. God damn it.
I'm one of those people, and I say it outright. You can't fix this corrupt system from within the corrupt system. But at the same time, silence is acquiescence. You have to go out there. You have to push back. You have to fight back. Mm-hmm. Realistically, if you gain control of your local communities and the boards and things like that in your local communities, none of the rest of the shit is going to matter. Because at the end of the day, you've got your local communities.
Right. Oh, very true, which I should start going and doing a little bit more. Around here, it's not so bad in Cherville, but yeah, I need to at least go and like listen and get involved.
Are there things that you can see improvements that could be made, things like that? Because that's how you get involved.
Right.
If it's, oh, damn, this park over here would look nice, but there's so much trash and shit. Let me grab a trash. I mean, you can't go around painting shit because this township will just dig in your ass. But
yeah.
Right. There's little things that you can do that even if you're not having anybody help you or anything like that, people are going to see that shit. And eventually someone's going to question you. And then you tell them, like, man, be the example I want to see, man. I want my community to be one of the best places there is. And then that trash in the street don't make that the appearance I want. So if it takes a little time out of my day, I'll pick the trash.
Right. Very true. I mean, even if it's not like necessarily my town, I can always go to one of the next ones, especially the ones that I grew up in, and go there and talk a little bit and try to get some shit done there, because yeah, some of those areas are pretty well shitty. You saw my one video. Was it whole lot of gang shit?
That's another thing. I constantly get messages like, well, I don't think there's anybody in my area that thinks the way I do. How do you know if you don't go out there? You know, I noticed a neighbor has a piece of fucking siding that's fallen off. Oh, hey, you want me to put that up there? I've got experience with siding, so I can put that up there so you're not getting water damage and stuff like that. It's sealed from the elements. And I'm not going to try. And I'm doing that because this is my community. I don't want to. I would like if I noticed or you noticed it on my house, you would let me know. Hey, you got a piece of siding falling. Oh shit, really? Let me go put that up because I don't want my house getting damaged, and I would do the same for you. Like,
right. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I got a spot on my property where the neighbor has a bush on his side, and it's right back up against my shed. And there's no clear, definitive line for property line here. Like it's on the paper, but there's certain spots that man's maintained himself when the property before we moved in was being maintained. So I'm very lenient with that. I'm like, oh, listen, whatever you've been maintaining, just keep doing your thing. If you need me to help with something, but I asked him just the other day, like, hey, this bush, we want to kind of put a chicken coop in here. I don't want to just start chopping, even though it's kind of leaning over here. It's just a general respect thing. Do you have an issue if I kind of enough so I can put a fence in here? Oh no, do what you need to do. All right, bet.
Nice, that's awesome. Hell yeah. See, that's a good neighbor.
The neighbor on the other side, he's got a little trailer and there's a boat launch next to us, and I noticed some people that weren't exactly. I've only talked to him twice, but I noticed there were people that like weren't him there, and I was like, "Yo, dude," because we exchanged numbers. I was like, "Hey, there's some people over here at your trailer, man. I don't know what's going on." And then
you can have a little meth lab going on.
His answer encouraged me because it was essentially, well, we don't have to call 811 out here, but his answer was good enough for me.
Gotcha. Hell yeah, man.
But it's just a matter of how far people are going to let it get before they're at the point that they need to do something. And a lot of people that are at that point have the wrong idea and perspective of how to go about doing that.
No, very true. Yeah. And a lot of people have just lost the perspective, period. Like how I was kind of saying earlier, the fact that they work for us and everyone they're just bowing down to the being ruled over, and all this money that we have put in is just being given away big time. And anyone who has not noticed that Social Security just keeps going down, everything you keep fucking paying into is just gone. It nothing but monopoly money.
It's a game for them. They're all on the same side, whether they like to make that appearance or not. They're all on the same side because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's in control of what. It never gets better for us. Any of it.
Right. Like the whole thing with like when it came to Trump, like he did some pretty good stuff. I'll give him that on some of his policies and whatnot. But he still was playing the game, and the bump stock ban, that's definitely against our Second Amendment. It just should not happen.
The man's controlled opposition. It had to look good in order for it to be convincing, but it was literally to buy time. People are like, oh, he woke everyone up. No, listen, if you pay attention to what was going on even right before, like even before he came on scene, so many people were starting to get fed up with the system and really starting to question the system overall. Okay? It was already happening. What he did was hitch on to the freaking tails of that shit, say all the right shit, make all the right moves, and get everybody in lockstep. Let's be real with it. He was able to motivate and muster people, but at the end of the day, it was all to still play to the same agenda.
Oh, that's exactly what I said in one of my videos when I said it was this lady said, what's the biggest scam going around that everyone is just still like a part of? And I said our whole government, every part of it. Even when Trump was in there, every part, it didn't matter. It's all just the exact same shit because he said he was going to drain the swamp. What did he drain? Not a goddamn thing. He helped me get $20 more a week on my paycheck with his tax cuts. That's basically about it.
Then there's the Q supporters, which, listen, you can't argue the information was
That's
legit.
What I was going to say. What are your thoughts on Q? What are your thoughts on Q?
It's gotta be legit if it's going to actually work. This is informational and psychological warfare at its finest. And we're in the digital age. They are pushing for an inevitable outcome. All roads lead to the same place. Okay?
See, like I think the Q has it definitely had a bunch of information that was true, but I think that it was a controlled opposition from something to keep people complacent from the exact same thing that happened during the a
Bolshevik.
Bolshevik revolution called
If you-
Project Trust,
It's
and
set
it's
up.
Project Trust 2.0.
Yep, Holodomor 2.0. They're setting up it's like just on a repeat cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just because all it does is keeps you being like, okay, eventually something's gonna happen. Little things, kind of every once in a while. Yes, it sprinkles some goodness in your in your way, in your fashion, but it just keeps you just sitting.
And it's got to keep its relevance and legitimacy to be effective. So yes, you're going to get a lot of good information. It's going to check out. It's going to pan out. But again, you're also going to get the more extreme shit that you're just like, okay, let's be realistic about this now. You know what I mean? It's the whole clue. You don't get one without the other. It's love and marriage, like.
Right. Oh yeah.
So, and that's the thing. That's another thing that keeps everybody distracted, to keep them constantly digging and trying to find the truth. The truth doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter on the left if you're on the left or the right. The one thing you cannot deny is that these people do not represent us, and therefore they are not entitled to our consent or our obedience.
Right, and that's what I don't get so much about, like, the left or the liberals, I guess, more, or this younger whatever generation, thinking that these people just like are all about you, and they're just all about like AOC and the squad and all, like it's
I
like
think
they really think that they care for them, and they do not. Like whenever what was it, AOC asked, was like, how is this shit gonna be paid for or whatever, she's like, you just pay for it. Like, are you fucking serious? Come on. Like
But that's part of the infiltration of the education system. And let's be real, we should have never had the education system under federal control anyways. Think about it. The federal government can do nothing and fund nothing without having to borrow the money, essentially in a roundabout way, from us by incurring debt in our name. Okay? So the less funding that the government has to play with, the less we have to pay back for what they borrow. It's that,
Right.
I mean, it's just the simplicity of it. So why are we allowing federal funds to grant towards education? That's a centralized control of something, which kind of goes against what we have in ideals as far as our Constitution and our government, how it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the point of it. Well, I think it's attributed to Roosevelt or whoever, that it says freedom is never more than one generation away. And they've done this by propagandizing the education system. They've allowed for that to be controlled and used to socially engineer. I harp on social engineering because people don't understand what it is and how much it plays into it and how much psychology plays into social engineering and the ever-present manipulation through a variety of things. They know more than they let on, and they have compiled all of this data to use as a weapon against society to control.
Social engineering is like is the downfall of a lot of what's happened, because everything has been socially engineered, and like especially college wise, what they have taught them, all these fucking ideologies and shit, and like what was it, one video a while ago, Be Free Inside, before he got fucking taken down, it was of this college professor chick talking about how they were teaching that genocide, people that have practiced that haven't, there's nothing wrong with them, like mentally or whatever else. It's just like a means to an end for a political gain. It's like, god damn, you're trying to teach people that is not fucked up. Like, what?
This thing, the conversation starts creeping normalcy. People will start, you tell a lie off. Look, it comes straight from World War II. You tell a lie often enough and loud enough, people will start to believe it. Now you're giving tenured professors the free reign to basically teach whatever the hell they want, because they can, because nobody can tell them anything. And you have these old school socialists that have been diehard socialists since their inception. I mean, realistically, look at it. Most of our
fucking Soros.
Soros? Yeah. Soros is everything that Hitler was.
Dude, he absolutely is. He has crushed countries. He has absolutely watch their dollar fall and bet against it. And you
I'll
know
never
he's
forget
betting against us.
him, but you do realize that he is Jewish. He's Austrian
Mhm.
Jew, and
Mhm.
he ended up being a part of the young what was it, the young Hitler I forget what it was, but in any case, he went on raids.
Oh yeah.
He went on raids of Jewish people's houses to steal their wealth and do all that shit. Right? He was there
Oh
when
yeah.
these things took place, and he's just perpetuated this shit ever fucking since. Now
Ever
he's
since.
that he was involved in this shit and has paid absolutely no price for doing so. Look at your look at the actual Nuremberg trials. How many people were actually tried out of an entire government, right? Where did all those other people go? Then start researching the Vatican rat lines, start researching Operation Paperclip, and you start to see where all of these people ended up. You
Mhm.
start
Oh
to see
yeah. Fucking U.S. and other countries saved guys from the fucking Nuremberg. Dude, that's so fucked up, man. Just because, dude, just because they're smart. Come on, like.
here's another thing. Here's another thing, okay? Because they pulled all of that shit, now all of that research, and this is another thing. People try to ignore it. A great majority of the medical advancements that we have, that we use today, is a direct result of the barbaric experiments performed by Nazi scientists on the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So think
It's
about
like,
that.
oh, we're fine. It's like, oh, we're fine with that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll use the advancements in the information, the psychology, all of it. We'll use all that for our gain, but then you start getting into the realization that we funded both sides of that war and pretty much every other one since. You start realizing that our federal government has used our military forces that they shouldn't even have. A centralized military forces anathema. It's repugnant to the Constitution and its very
Oh,
existence.
dude,
But
yeah, dude, especially all the fucking three-letter agencies that we have that fucking infringe on every goddamn right of every American all the time, and just,
I love it when people get on my content and they're like posse comitatus, and I'm like, bro, we militarized our police force. Posse comitatus went out the window a long time ago.
right.
Like, I mean, let's be legit. They literally sell them military grade equipment to use for policing purposes. Posse comitatus is gone, y'all. Be real. And now you got the red flag laws along with that whole they can deputize whoever they need to in the local area to accomplish what they're there to accomplish. How much you want to bet before they start deputizing Antifa and shit?
Oh, dude, like, yeah, certain states and shit, I can see them doing that.
And listen, this is I'm someone who has read a lot of literature from a lot of different perspectives, from a lot of different types of things. Okay, and there's a particular book that I remember reading that runs along these freaking lines, and it's crazy because it's like one of the, call it, sacred texts for white supremacists. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the book. It's called Turner's Diaries. It's a hypothetical book about a totalitarian dictatorship that takes place. And don't get me wrong, some of it is graphic and some of the language is not 100% appropriate, like the N-word is used and shit like that. But I remember
Right.
I remember hearing about the book, and I was starting to research all this stuff, and I remember hearing about it. So I finally got my hands on a copy, and I was like, all right, well, let me read it, Let me read it. And it's a fictional book. But legitimately, I'm looking at the shit that's happening, and I'm like, bro, it's like an Orwell book, how it's just shaping up to be reality.
I hear you.
It goes into FEMA camps, like it gives you the Red Dawn type vibe, only if our own government invaded us. Like,
I got. Oh no. Okay.
and it ends with a plane going, like, yeah, dude, seriously, not to pump up some bullshit like that's associated with some racist ass shit, but the book itself is just very freaking interesting, and I never understood why the book itself is other than the fact that it's anti-government and a lot of white supremacists are. I didn't really understand why it's so like revered among those communities, because I was reading the book and I was like, there's a lot of people could actually relate to this book. Maybe it's been slandered and associated with them to keep people from reading it and making any kind of connection. I don't know. But it was a very, very interesting book to read. I've read, I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of the other information from them as far as like the 88 precepts and where they came from and the individual who adapted them here in America for like whites. Like I studied all this shit from Egyptians to the Greeks to like I've had a lot of study time to look at all of the different perspectives I have and sit back and wonder about different things. Like I don't know, maybe I'm just very philosophical and just want to look at shit. Like
hey, but that's good. That's awesome. Like I mean, you gotta like if you read through everything, you have enough to at least think about like how things can connect and shit. Like that's whenever it comes. I don't know, like. For me, whenever it comes to like the Bible and stuff like that, there's so many other connections that came before it too for me to just be like, well, this is it. Because
an awesome book about that has like so much freaking information about literally everything, and it's called Fossilized Customs. It's put out by the Church of Yahweh, and Fossilized Customs, but it goes down and it breaks down literally everything about modern Christianity, traces it all back, breaks down the Council of Nicaea and how literally it went from Christians being persecuted to being the religion of the empire, and how that took place because a particular person inherited a fractured kingdom and wanted to unite the kingdom and figured that religion was his way to do it. And again, it's literally like this book is so fine print when you get it, dude. There's so much information packed into it, all the different customs from Christmas trees to how it impacts the environment and how it alters CO2 levels and shit like that, because it's the one time of the year where all other fauna that deals with oxygen is actually laying in rest because of it being winter, and we cut down the one tree in mass to bring it indoors and decorate it in gold, the one tree that stays in bloom and takes in the CO2 and puts out the oxygen throughout. It's insane. The things in that book were all eye-opening for me as far as just all of it. It was a lot of information that I.
I can see some shit like that too, because I mean, whenever it comes down to it, if you go by the Bible and the timeline and all that shit, like everything that gets celebrated doesn't get celebrated when it's supposed to, like Easter or fucking Christmas or any of it.
They changed the calendar and all this shit, but realistically,
right, we're on the Gregorian calendar, and it's like got years added and other shit.
Right now, realistically, religions were the original form of government. It was a way to control people either way, and it was a way to try and understand the world. So, biblically speaking, especially Old Testament, it's accurate. You find it accurate in archaeological digs and stuff like that, the stories to be accurate, the information to be accurate, and that's because it's a history of a particular group of people. And when you take that step back and look at it, it shows the history of a specific group of people, and it's intertwined with their religious beliefs and understandings of the world around them from that perspective. And so I respect it as far as that, because again, historically, it shows time and time again to be of somewhat accurate. Now, the timelines, as far as how we associate it with what we know as Earth's historical timelines, which are daily in question now. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Tartaria or any of that shit. Interesting shit.
Yeah, it is. It's real interesting. I've been trying to get more and more into it, and yeah.
It's interesting because once you start getting into Tartaria, you got to start looking into like the I think it was the 1913 World Fair and the pictures that came from that, and how they had incubators and babies and incubators. And I remember these books, man. I remember them, the baby trains and all.
They all had like the Tesla power shit, like where it was basically through the air and like the real fucking free energy and.
Yes, so it's a very interesting thing to start digging into, and you start wondering because they start showing pictures of something like San Francisco. The city's practically already built, and you're telling me that we've literally just gotten here. We built cities already? No, people were shifted. The streets were empty. People were shifted into here. you start, and then you start to understand how the perspective could change seemingly overnight like that. Freedom is never one generation away. So once they get control of the education system, boom, the education changed overnight. Look at No Child Left Behind. Look at some of those other things that focused on education through the 90s. There's the start of that first generation. Bam. Perspectives have shifted overnight.
Right.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You getting into Tartaria, even mentioning that, because dude, that's something that I've been trying to get into for a while. That shit's interesting as fuck.
You can't genuinely claim to be a rational, free-thinking individual if you are not at least willing to look at information and consider the possibility that you might have to change your perspective. If you are too stubborn and holding on to your perspectives, you could never openly look at the information and make a rational determination based on any kind of rational thought. You can't claim to have that free thought and be a cognitive thinker if you're not willing to constantly reassess your perspectives.
Right. I definitely agree. Especially coming from a person, well, from me, I'm definitely a conspiracy theorist. I look into quite a few of them. Not that I believe all of them, but I definitely am. I am that. I will definitely say that.
Paranoid does not mean that they're not out to get you. Okay?
Exactly. Guns don't kill people. The government does.
Let me be honest with you. It takes way more faith because and this is my argument for religion, or at least having faith or belief in something greater than yourself, because it genuinely takes more faith to believe that your government has your best interests at heart than it does to believe that there's an all-powerful creator out there. I'm just telling you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like, well, for me, you definitely know me. I hate the government. I don't believe in any part of that. But when it comes to the other side, I believe that there's something. I don't know exactly what it is. That's why I keep like looking into everything. But there's definitely something. But even like, here's one thing that I've had a conversation with some Christians. It's like, just even if like I am or would be Christian, which I'm more along those lines, for you to say that I can't criticize my own God because sometimes I don't think he did the right thing or he was an asshole in some ways, that ain't right. I should be able to.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Okay, all forms of Christianity, all your branches of Christianity, they came from the same source, and that's Catholicism. Period. Like, all of it came from Catholicism. All the different branches of Christianity, they branched out originally from Catholicism. The crazy thing is, when you start looking into the Vatican, the actual name for the Vatican is Vaticanus. When you translate it, it means habitation of the dogs. It was originally a place that was a swampland surrounded by 7 hills in that area. And the original form of carnivals, where human and animal sacrifices and such things of orgy and heathen natures took place pretty regularly, and that place was where they dumped the carcasses, and wild dogs would go there to eat of the flesh of the dead and sacrificed animals and people. So, over time, this was filled in, and what you get is the catacombs beneath the Vatican. That's where the Vatican is at. The catacombs, the balls of bones and stuff like that, that's where it's at. Now, you go back in history and you look at the pillaging and sacking of Alexandria and the Library of Alexandria. Do you know where most of that stuff ended up?
Mm-mm.
Under the Vatican in their secret archives.
Okay, is that in their secret room where fucking nobody goes into and shit?
Have an entire restricted library that there is no resource to know what's in there. If you want to see something in there, not only do you have to go through crazy clearance shit, but then you have to specifically know what you are looking for. And seeing as how no eyes have even seen any of the shit in the Library of Alexandria, how can you ask for what you're looking for? You can't. But it's there.
That's one thing that I've always said about the Vatican too. It's like, I can understand, like, I have nothing against Catholic religion and whatnot. My main thing is I do not like the Vatican. It's a weird evil kind of place. Like, the inside of the Vatican itself, when you go into it, there's like not even any crosses or anything. It looks like a fucking serpent's head with like the two eye looking things that are in there and shit. And plus with the bullshit on, looks like this fucking evil, crazy demon fucking thing.
Well, once you actually start, this is the crazy thing, right? You start looking at the prophecy and you start looking at who's controlling all these different things, who's actually pulling the strings behind all of it. Once you get to that little level of understanding, you're looking at it and you're like, I see. Self-fulfilling prophecy. You got these people hardcore falling into religious zealotry. Ooh, slick, because the same people control the government, so the same people controlling the religions. It's all masterminded behind the scenes, and you're sitting here like, oh, if it wasn't so goddamn devious, the strategy is
right? If it wasn't so evil, it'd be diabolically genius.
Yeah. Because listen, when you start sitting back and looking at it, now I'm a very strategic person. I don't know. My life has just made me so. And I always did like chess and the history behind chess. So I'm looking, I always look at things. And I when I learned to play chess and somebody that meant a lot to me that helped me improve my game told me about thinking 3 moves ahead. All right. And me and him had long conversations about this. Because if you can think 3 moves ahead, you can't lose. But some of the things that have driven the greatest minds in chess to absolute insanity, like legitimate, researchable, these people lost their fucking minds over the game of chess because it is a freaking cyclical, psychotic pattern of having to think 3 moves ahead. Because if you're thinking 3 moves ahead, you have to consider the possibility that your opponent is trying to think 3 moves ahead of that 3 moves. So you have to try and think another 3 ahead. And when you really start getting to that high peak level of that, it can cause a mind to break because there are so many variables and options that it's insane. But overall, I realized in playing chess, because I had some rage issues as a kid, and it was one of those things that calmed my mind and made me think. The strategy behind it. I realized that same strategy could be applied to real life if you're thinking 3 moves ahead. So everything that I see gets done, or that comes across I'm thinking, who's it benefiting? Where does it move what we already know the agenda to? What can it be used for? Because it's not going to be used for good. We know nothing they're doing is being used for good. So how is it going to be weaponized? Because that's all they get about is weaponizing everything against us. So once you start, that's where you start, and you start looking for the connections between all this shit, and you're just like, oh my god, Charlotte's Web ain't got shit on this, bruh.
Very true. Yeah, that's a good name for this episode too. It's called 3 Moves Ahead.
I got on I was resistant to TikTok for a long time, and then I started seeing how the platform worked, and I realized, screw it, I got nothing to lose. Let me be a toolbox on TikTok. At least somebody hear my rants, and then I got a reception that I couldn't believe.
Well, you and me both. And you've moved up quite a bit, pretty fast too, which is fucking awesome because your knowledge on shit is dope. I'm glad that you put out what you're putting out about the Constitution and the way to understand it, and the fact that you answer the same question quite a few times. Bravo to you, because some people would not be doing that. But
it's a test of patience. But at the same time, every time I put it out, I understand the algorithmic shit. So the first video that I make on it, it'll gain some traction. If I have to make it again, it'll gain a little bit more because I'm already going to get the likes. People have seen this shit. They're going to hit that like button. Even if they scroll and don't give it the view, it's going to get a higher view. So even having to do it a couple of times, there's times where it gets tedious, especially when I have to go back and forth with the same person in a cyclical pattern. But at some point I realized...
But pounding out the same message helps, though.
Tell a lie often enough and loud enough, people begin to believe it. How much more powerful do you think telling the truth does?
Right. Oh, dude, yeah, that's... when I first got onto TikTok, I was only on there just to, laugh at shit and whatever else, and then I met up with a few people to get into this anti-predator, anti-pedophile group, UPH, United Predator Hunters, and then we had a pretty good group going with that, and that shit got pretty wild because we'd make some dark content, you'd have people complaining about like, oh, why would you think that you just off a pedophile back? You say we shouldn't? I
Yeah,
don't know
really.
about you, but
Well, anybody asks me, I tell them I'll tell them it like this: like I don't make as much of that content, and I have a reason for not making that content, and there's somebody else close to me that I think is eventually going to start doing that themselves. So that base is covered.
right,
But the way I express it is this: I don't give a fuck what you want to try, pull psychology or explain psychologically. A pedophile by nature is a freaking tyrant. Okay, it's a freaking tyrant. It's just another shade of tyranny because they get their sick, twisted pleasure off of being able to overpower someone smaller and weaker than them. It's that fucking simple. Okay, they are a tyrant, and tyrants should all be treated the same, and we all know how tyrants should be treated.
oh yeah, exactly.
I recognize, and listen, like I said, open mind, open perspective. I recognize that the concept of pedophilia is actually a newer concept. Okay, it's something that our society settled on and agreed upon as a
Right.
genuine thing. And right and wrong is that there is no good and evil outside of the mind of man. Right and wrong is a general consensus of a given group of society or a given group of a collective people that have a common belief in right and wrong. Okay, so for example, here in America,
Right.
we would consider it barbaric and abhorrent to cut the hand off of a thief, but however, in the Middle East, it is considered righteous and legal and lawful to chop the finger or hand off of a thief caught. So it really is a cultural understanding, perspective, and consensus that's going to determine right and wrong. And as far as good and evil, I kind of put it like this, right? Evil is anything that detracts from life because evil is literally live spelled backwards.
Right. Very true.
It's detracting from life, considering how precious and short life is. It's probably not a good thing.
True.
So, I mean, it's just basic, simple, rational concepts and thoughts that I've had because I've seen the divide from shit like religion. When you take a step back and look at all the different religions and the messages that they preach, the concepts are essentially the same. They're all built off the same thing. It's individual will, the right to individual will and determination, the choice, freedom. They're all saying the same shit. Look at all the different ways that they say to interact with the people around you, and I will say even the goddamn Satanist: harm none, do what ye will. Okay, so like, it's a very simple concept, and it's all
Right.
summed up in the non-aggression principle, which is essentially ain't nobody doing anything wrong if they ain't infringing upon your individual liberties, your property, your rights. It's very simple. Let them live their lives.
Right. No, very true. Yeah. And I definitely agree with that.
I don't know. I think you follow him, but what is it, Judge NAP or whatever? NAP Judge.
I'm not sure.
Check him out on TikTok. It's a guy. He's another guy that's kind of got his shit together and knows the law, and he puts out his videos. But he puts out his content based on the non-aggression principle in the Constitution.
Okay.
I like the guy. He's somebody to follow.
Right on. Yeah, I'll have to check him out for sure. Hell yeah.
Read a few things from him on at least one or two of my accounts, but God knows what content is actually up anymore. I failed to organize my content into like accessible files and stuff, so it's just wherever it fell in shit is where it's at, and I have no intention of trying to deal with that at this point.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that for sure.
My accounts get banned too often to care.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. Mine, I like my one account got banned for 3 days, but it was because of like was it stitches that I've done that they've considered like harassment and bullying and whatever else, just because I kind of talk some shit. That's like you've seen my stuff. I don't even really talk all that much shit. Like it, well, not that much, but sometimes. But yeah, I don't get too wild. Well, that's one. I was gonna say that's one thing. Like with like a lot of my content on there too. That's why I love that there's people like you and whatever, because like I do the podcast, I talk about a lot of this stuff on the podcast and shit. Like when it comes to me doing most of my content, I just kind of do funny stuff, anti-government stuff, shit like that. Try to get a rouse out of people and try to mix it up.
See,
Because I mean, there's a lot of people with good information, but that's why I love doing like the podcast wise, because then I can pick your brain like how we are now.
Yeah. Well, I like following people like you because your content allows me. You, Aunt Mel, or Horton, you guys put out some
Yeah.
of the content that I can duet to give a break from the constant levity of what I do. So it gives me that, and sometimes it gives a little bit of a perspective shift because you guys say some things that make people go, even if it is in satire or in a way, it's just memetic warfare is a
Right.
real thing. I don't know if you saw the government's post on that. Like there was I believe it might be FBI where they were talking about memetic warfare. So basically, weaponizing memes and using them on social media to try and control perspective and shit. The government released a thing on this, and it was hilarious to me.
Oh.
At the time, I was watching Instagram, and I watched all the big boys on Instagram, like literally make entire catalogs of memes dedicated to meme war and meme lords. Woo, thank you. I just got flashed. I might have to go.
Uh-oh. He's like, real business is waiting.
Yeah, I don't think this is something we can put on the party podcast, though. Because they have to tune into the OnlyFans.
Right? And from here we'll click on.
How many people just went to their internet browser to look up an OnlyFans under my name?
Right? They're like, oh shit, hold on.
They're already getting their lotion and tissue paper out for a fab session.
Hell yeah.
God, I've been waiting on this.
Keep turning that camera towards me, you're gonna get a free show.
You hear
Yep.
Duty calls.
All right, shit, man. Yeah, well, I'll jump off of here to. Hey, good having you on. If you want, plug yourself. Plug your TikTok and shit again.
1776 by 2.4 and 2.5. There's merch link in bio. I didn't originally want to do merch, but people started asking, so I was like, well, if people want to buy shit from me during the impending economic collapse, that's their choice. But I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. That's what's up. Hey, capitalism, buddy.
Hey, man. Gotta love it.
Hell yeah. All right, brother. I will talk to you later. Good talking to you.
Act accordingly.
Yeah.